Yeah, we're live, but not live. Here we go. Thanks. There you go, Perfidy. You can watch along. Very good.
Yeah.
You don't get anything if you don't ask, so I like it. I like his moxie.
It was all for Perfidy, this whole thing. We're all just here for him.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, so guys, obviously I'll do the intro and stuff, but I reckon we're going to leverage Alex a bit here, and Josh. Obviously, Josh has played, but
I
don't know how.
Got nothing.
I'll be exposed for the fraud that I am. I'm gonna level with you guys. I've never even played Warhammer. What's this, Mordheim?
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 Is it Widestone or Weirdstone?
Mordheim?
Yeah.
It is Weirdstone, isn't it?
Love it.
Actually,
Yeah, it is.
Bring that up.
Weirdstone.
Okay.
Okay, right.
Well, you could call it Weirdstone or Wordstone or whatever, really.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I guess maybe I'm happy to obviously do the intro and then introduce ourselves. But obviously, I mean, it's on Old World Fanatics at the moment, so I'll probably mention all that stuff. But then, Alex, I'll just throw to you to do a bit of an intro of yourself. I think people would have seen you on that. Obviously, you were on our collab episode, and they know you from Rank Bonus, hopefully. So,
I mean, that collab episode had like 16 talking heads going at once. That was a big episode.
Yeah,
I would say most Australian viewers will know who Alex is. Surely.
Totally.
I mean, you guys would have a pretty big following of like Old World players, whereas Frank and I don't really talk about Old World much at all. So I don't know whether I think we're a bit more niche as far as our audience.
I think you're both known to like everyone. Like
we might be. I don't know.
I still
There's
reckon
a couple of idiots who don't even edit their podcast properly or have intro music. So,
who edits?
And then, I don't know, just organic chat. Obviously, this is an intro. I feel like it's almost like the way I'm treating this is I'm just going to learn through what we do here and hopefully move along, because I haven't touched any of it. I mean, obviously I have the book and stuff, but it's going to be.
No, it'd be good, because I figured like between obviously Gomo, you're like more runs a show. Alex on his kind of runs the show as well. And then obviously Josh, you know Mordheim. So it's like, I feel like you three give a lot of value. So I don't know what to contribute. I'm just going to sit.
You're the one who's done the most hobby.
Andrew, you're building a Mordheim warband, aren't you? Or like kind of looking into it?
Yeah, well, me and Gomo, I'm about this close from buying an FDM printer. So try and get all that stuff done. I'm getting a Sidewinder 2, I think. I don't know if you know what they are.
Music to me. Maybe we'll talk about this on the pod.
I know nothing.
Can we
be like,
do
come
the
on.
intro and now actually start like?
I'm
probably going to take me.
We're just doing the podcast now without an intro.
Yeah. I'm the Jon Snow of 3D printing. I know nothing.
I know nothing. Yeah. I mean, anyway, we'll get into that. Okay, I'm just going to try to do this intro and then see how it goes, and we'll get into it.
But then we can resume our conversation.
Sounds good. Yeah.
Welcome to Mordheim Fanatics, the podcast that digs up Weirdstone in the heart of the Empire's nightmare, the city of the damned. I'm Gomo. I'm joined, as usual, by Andrew and Josh, but also Alex. How's everyone?
Alex.
Hey guys, thank you for having me.
We're not even having you. You are permanent on Mordheim Fanatics. You are the founder.
I know. You introduced him like he's a guest, but he's part of it.
Yeah.
He's the padre.
It's signed to a contract.
An equal partner.
That's right.
I'll have my manager discuss terms. Okay.
No worries. All good. Yeah. Obviously, this is currently out there on our Old World Fanatics YouTube. Well, what happened there? Someone's just moved stuff around.
I had to promote Alex. So I'm like,
okay, right, yeah. So yeah, thanks for all the listeners, Old World Fanatics. But obviously, if you come here because you're searching #Mordheim on YouTube, it's all Old World. So we are getting into it. Andrew and I are virgins to the old cursed city, or whatever you want to call it, the damned city. Sounds like
cherry is still ripe.
Josh is a secret player who runs off from
dabbled.
Warhammer tournaments and plays more.
I don't know what Josh gets up to. Josh is in
my
everything.
responsibilities and go off and play for an afternoon.
And Alex is running Castle Assault Mordheim. So we, I think, got all types here. So
yeah,
I gotta say, like, as much as I did that, I feel like Alex is at least partially responsible for my actions on that weekend. Like,
right.
I will admit there was probably
so
like a
persistent.
2-hour period. There was a 2-hour period late on, like, what was it? Maybe the Thursday night prior to CanCon, where me and Josh were like chatting each other, and I was like, oh, it's a shame you're not coming to Mordheim, and you were like, oh yeah, I kind of wish I was doing that. I'm like, there's still tickets available, right? And it went back and forth. Like, this was kind of, it probably was a few days out from CanCon, and then he took the plunge. So there you go.
Yeah, he just bought
was
tickets
very
to
short
both.
notice. Yeah. And I literally bought full tickets to both events.
That's awesome. It feels like maybe we're forming a war band here, so it's pretty similar. That's how you get in there. So. What are we going to chat about? And Alex, do you want to just give a quick? Obviously, I think people do know you, but if you want to just quick intro, people obviously know us. But
I definitely think you're assuming that my podcast is on par with yours, which it's definitely not. So I think that I'd say a few of your listenership might have come across the Rank Bonus podcast, which is myself and Frank that do that podcast, and predominantly we talk about 6th edition Warhammer Fantasy 6th edition with a little bit of old world chat here and there, but it's mostly sort of it's probably a bit more niche, I suppose. So I imagine
old world, but a little while ago, but mainly focused a bit more, weren't you?
We sort of when did we start this up? A couple of years ago, I think, and we pretty much this was when this was before Old World had come out, and 6th edition was still fairly, like, 6th edition kind of was quite a surge of momentum with 6th edition as a result of as a result of the announcement of Old World. So there was heaps of people that were like joining up for 6th edition events that we were running and stuff like that. So we just were having a good time with it and decided we wanted to start a podcast about it. And we've been doing that for a couple of years, and we definitely don't record as often as you guys do. You guys are like, I'm so impressed you guys have managed to
really, it's the only thing of value we can bring to the table, I feel.
Oh, it's awesome though. I mean, as far as just having like just content available that's like, you guys are very up to date with stuff, whereas Frank and I only record every 3 weeks or maybe sometimes 4 weeks. So it's kind of like, but I mean, at least I suppose when you're recording about 6th edition, it's not like stuff is changing. So you're not having to keep up to date really. But I mean, we've done a few episodes on Old World stuff, but we're kind of just, the two of us just dabble in different things. We do 6th ed, and we
does historicals as well, doesn't
he? He actually doesn't, but I feel like,
was it Napoleon or something?
No, I think he has played some stuff like that before, like Napoleonics or something. But predominantly he just sticks to Warhammer Fantasy 6th edition, to be honest. So but it's dabbled with other. Yeah, exactly. But to be honest, we're lining up an episode where we're going to talk about Warhammer 40k 3rd edition, which we've actually been playing some of that on the side, which has been quite good. And like, we sort of do little episodes about different
which one, sorry, which one's 3rd edition? Is that the one that came with the crashed like plastic thing?
No, I think that was 3rd edition was the book that had the Black Templars on the front. And there's the guy with like the flamethrower, and he's like aiming it at the front. So anyway, so we kind of just dabble in different things, but most of the time we talk about 6th edition. But we have done a couple of episodes on Mordheim as well. Which kind of tied into
maybe I should listen to them before this. But I will.
No, this is good. I love talking about Mordheim. And to be honest with you, like as you mentioned before, I'm running the Mordheim event at Castle Assault, which is coming up in mid-August, the 16th and 17th of August, and there are still a couple of spots left for that. So if there's anyone out there who's watching this and goes, "Oh, I'd love to play," like right at this moment, there are still a couple of spots available. So. And they might even open a spot. There was but I think Kendall's counting me as a number. and I'm only going to play. I'm only going to play if someone needs an opponent. So like basically they've given us a cap of 20 for the time being, and right now there's 18 players signed up plus myself. So like
Wouldn't
as
you
far
be
as
able
I'm
to play?
concerned,
Like, how much overhead is there, really?
I'll play, but like it's more going to be like I'm not going to take the spot of a paid player. You know what I mean? So if we get 20 paid players and they all have opponents, then I don't really need to do that much apart from just wander around, take photos, and answer some questions.
And Andrew and I can come over and play against you then.
You absolutely can. I will absolutely. I'll give you guys an intro game, even if you want.
Yeah.
We'll do that on the Friday night. You can have an intro game of Mordheim.
Ask that.
Be a bit of fun. Yeah. So
I mean, Castle Assault's lining up well. I think it's all full. I mean, was it 3 9th age spots left, and then you've got one thingy, and Old World's full. So
Old World and
I'd love it if they could.
Mordheim, they're like slowing us down, aren't they? To try and the other ones to catch up a bit.
Yeah. Well, I think Kendall's wanting to fill up all the events before looking at potentially increasing caps and stuff. So I guess we'll see. But I mean, if you are someone out there, I guess, who's watching this or listening to this, right now there are at least, I think there's 2 spots available. However, even if a lot of people put their interest in, because you can register your interest, if a lot of people register their interest, then Kendall might just open up more spots. So it doesn't hurt to register your interest if you're wanting to come. So
and it hasn't been open for like months and months. Like it sort of seems like it was only
maybe a month, if that. Maybe
I was going to say a couple of weeks.
I was going to say 2 to 3 weeks. Yeah.
And it's pretty much both Old World and Mordheim are pretty much sold out. That's crazy.
Yeah, no, it's good.
Yeah, and they're doing Warmaster as well, and I think
Warmaster 9th age. Yeah,
I think that's Warmaster's full as well. Yeah, so
I was surprised 9th age had so much support in Newcastle. Must be quite a few people still playing it, because the other 3 I knew there was a seed. I see. I thought 9th age was dead.
Yeah, well, there was a few people playing down at Sutherland, but
Adkill was saying, I won't get into it too much, but he mentioned down there, because I said the same thing, that apparently it's still quite big in Europe. So there's still like an ETC-ish sort of following in Australia to a degree.
Yeah.
So I think that real high competitive.
Anyway, we better get on the Mordheim.
Anyway,
but Castle Assault.
Sorry, it's about 10 minutes of preamble.
We're actually going to try and keep these to an hour, and I'm laughing, Josh. We'll see. Hopefully,
have you listened? Have you listened to the Rank Bonus podcast? Have you seen how much random crap we talk about? Anyway,
well, you're at home here. Cool. Well, I don't really want to drive the episode because I know nothing. How are we going to talk about this? I feel like
shall we at least talk about a little bit about our history in context of Mordheim? Like, have you guys have you guys ever played it, or like what are your like recollections of it or exposure to it?
I've played the video game.
Step up
quite a bit.
Right. Oh, there's
I've heard it's quite good.
It came out in 6th ed, didn't it?
Yeah.
Like around the time of
just before 6th ed.
Mordheim was before 6th ed, but probably just about a year before. It was 1999, I believe.
Okay, so that's why I would have seen it, but I didn't.
Hence the comment.
Really. Yeah. Okay.
Hence the end of the world theme.
Yeah.
Okay.
But I think Mordheim, if you look at like what Warhammer Fantasy was prior to, say, 6th edition, like if we're looking at 5th ed Warhammer Fantasy, it's very bright, colorful, cartoony. And then Mordheim, when they dropped that, it was like a complete change of like all the imagery is very dark. It's very dirty. It's very black and white, but it's that very kind gritty. Of real gritty, sort of vibe. And they'd already gone in that direction with 40K. But they did it with Mordheim, and that kind of, I guess, gave a bit of context to what they were going to do in the following years as well.
Yeah. I mean, I remember it because I got out of 6th. That's when I sort of, went hard into uni and stuff. So I sort of dropped out of 6th. I bought the books and stuff, but I remember Mordheim. So it would have been a case of Mordheim was out, but I had barely had enough money to pay for Warhammer, let alone another game. Games Workshop. So it's probably that.
Yeah, I played it a bit when it came out with my friends at the time. I don't think I ever played it massively, really. Like I think we play like 3 or 4 games once or twice here or there.
Yeah.
I think I did. I seem to remember I did actually play the Bretonian Warband. I must have been. I feel like that was released a little bit after the initial release. I feel, but yeah, that was. I did run them, of course. Didn't go particularly well that I remember, but I haven't really played it since then. I never really got into like a proper campaign thing either. Like for me, it was like something that I played a few like pickup games with my mates, and that's as far as I went. Mostly we were playing like proper fantasy. Didn't go beyond that. So really going back to CanCon was really the first time I properly played it.
Yeah, and I think I mean, to give you guys the background from my end as well, when it came out, the best thing about Mordheim was that there was probably, in my kind of group of friends, there was probably a couple of us that were quite into Warhammer and actually painted up like an army of miniatures. Then there was a few other guys that kind of wanted to, but either couldn't be bothered to paint everything, or couldn't be bothered to like buy everything, or just didn't have the money or had other priorities, which is fair enough. But we ended up with a group of 4 or 5 of us who everyone just bought a different warband, and we'd basically, someone would host a weekend and we'd just go and sleep over at someone's place and just play Mordheim for from the Friday night through to like the Sunday afternoon. And we do that, this is when we were 15, 16, so we didn't have much else on. So you just pretty much just we just spend all weekend, and we do that every 2 or 3 weeks. It was great. And we were just doing that for, I would say, almost for a couple of years. During high school, we were just before high school got too hectic, before we had to spend a lot of time studying for stuff, we kind of just got together every couple of weekends.
Are they switching I mean, we'll get into this, but is that was that multiple campaigns? Did you keep leveling up?
We generally start a new campaign every time, because usually we'd get to the end of the weekend and some people were really happy with how their warband had performed and others weren't. And then 2 weeks later, when we get together again, usually someone would be pretty keen to start from scratch. So usually the fair thing to do would be we all just start our warband again. But it also gave people a chance to paint some different models in between, and then kind of you could turn up with some different stuff each time. So that was a lot of fun. We had a lot of fun playing that, and we kind of just had makeshift terrain and cut out cardboard boxes and just made whatever we could, and kind of cobbled together a few bits of terrain, and that was it. So we had a lot of fun doing that. And Mordheim's a game that I've kind of since kind of playing it really regularly in my teenage years, then kind of kept my models, and ended up even buying some Mordheim models probably about a decade ago, and then kept dabbling with it here and there just whenever the chance arose.
You have your original Mordheim models?
So yes, the original Mordheim warband I was using back when I was a teenager was just some models that I pulled out of my undead army. So it was just here's a necromancer, I've got that. Here's some direwolves, here's some zombies. So I actually didn't really have to paint much because it was already pretty much painted. So those models, I think I've still got somewhere. But yeah, in fact, I think I've actually paint stripped a few of them and I'm redoing them, which is kind of cool. So
what did the box set come with?
It was Skaven. It was basically the Skaven Night Runner. The Night Runner box set, which is 20 of those kind of older Skaven, and some of them you can give them slings and
dogs.
It's a really if you compare them to modern, you compare them to modern Skaven, they basically don't even look like the same army. But that night, it was basically the Night Runner set and the Free Company set. And then you had enough guys to make a warband for each, and then you had some cardboard cutout terrain that you could slot together and sort of make a fairly small gaming table with that. And the rule book and a few other little odds and ends, and that was the set. But it was funny because
whippy sticks.
I think it did, the old whippy sticks, But the funny thing was, I remember having a look at some old white dwarfs recently, and you go back and look at the pricing. Tell me so have a guess. 2 warbands with about something like 15 to 20 models in each, plus the terrain, plus the whippy sticks, plus the rule book, plus a few other odds and ends. What do you think? Okay, tell me what you think Games Workshop, what do you think they were charging for it in 1999? And what do you think they would charge for that now? Based on current starter sets and stuff.
Would it be about $60, $70? I don't know.
Yeah, I was going to say 70.
I
70 or
thought
80.
more. Yeah.
Oh,
Oh, jeez.
even back then.
100
So now
million.
I think it's in that
Like even back
$500
then,
range.
like 120 or
Land
something,
like that
maybe
now?
back then.
So it was in Australian dollars, it was $100,
Oh, okay.
which
Oh,
is amazing for a rule
Because that's a
book
lot
with
of.
two armies, and like you had enough
Yeah.
stuff in that kit to literally play a whole Mordheim campaign. You could probably add a few bits of homemade terrain to it just to like make the board a bit bigger, but you could quite easily, comfortably play a whole campaign, and it's $100 set. And then the other warbands that you could buy, which were, you know, just in like their own boxes, I think they were only like $40 or $50.
Yeah.
Whereas now they'd be charging you 130, 140 for a like.
Well, aren't like the big boxes like Horus Heresy and all that, aren't they like Australian pushing that $500, like four into the 400s, aren't they?
I think so. Yeah.
Yeah.
Something like that.
Yeah, they are.
Yeah. So
But
it's just
that's
funny.
a bunch
just
of
you
metal
look-
minis in there too, isn't it? Like you're saying it's like 15, like two
no.
warbands, or were they
In
plastic?
in the original kit, the original box set for Mordheim, it was basically just the two plastic sets. So you didn't really get any special like.
Oh, right.
You probably would have like if you were like you could make guys that like you could, because they were all multi-part dudes, you could make some guys that were like, oh, this guy's my leader and this guy's a special hero. So like you could have done that, but if you wanted to, you could buy a few extra metal minis to sort of like fill out the heroes and things. But it was perfectly playable as a game. It was perfectly playable with all the models that were in the set. So which wasn't always the case for different starter sets they did. Like Anyway, so it's just funny when you look back at these things and you go like $100. Like I would buy that like no questions asked if it was like, you know, today. But I mean, now they would find a way to charge you $400 or $500 for it. So
That's crazy.
Anyway, that's inflation for you.
Yeah, it is. It's crazy.
And it'd be all plastic terrain and stuff that they have now in like Warcry, those type of things and stuff.
Whereas the old Mordheim set was cardboard, cardboard terrain that had some detail on it. Like, it's a ruined building with like brickwork showing and stuff like that. But then you had these little plastic kind of like little window, what would you call it? Like kind of like little window architecture and stuff like that you could slot into it. So it's sort of, and then you could slot them together with like these had like the corner bits were sort of like little brickwork things, and you'd slot it in. So
that looked pretty good, really.
So there's actually a sprue that's quite hard to get that like I think goes for quite a bit on eBay. Surprise, surprise, which is like the sprue that has all the little like window bits on it and the
trays and that type of thing.
Yeah, so it's
so
if you were doing, and I'm sure these days you could just 3D print it anyway, but like you could like custom make your own terrain, and then like if you had that sprue, then you've got the little like window fittings and
it.
So
well, there was a Mordheim box down at the Sutherland Shire. Was it $1,000?
Yeah, close to 7. I think it went down to 700 by the end of it. You know how they reduce the price? I was just Every now and again, I see one that doesn't look too bad going for like 300-400. It's just like
you just don't really need it, hey?
It's actually not worth it because you're actually not getting any miniatures that you couldn't already buy now. Like you could, the Night Runner kit still exists. You can buy it, and the Free Company kit just got re-released. So you're not buying it for the models. I think it's more just people who want it almost as a collector's item because it's a cool box. It's got all like if it's got all the terrain still in it that like unpunched, then I can sort of see why people want to get it. But like, to be honest, as far as like the models that are in it, you can get those models no problem these days, and you can get you can easily download and print the rule book. Like it's not hard to do that either. So anyway, that's I don't think it's really worth like anyone going nuts and spending heaps of money on one unless you really, really want it as a collector. So
it's gonna be a collector, surely. Yeah, there's so many better options these days, especially for terrain.
Well, this is the thing. This is if anything, that's probably what I'm a little bit lost on, and we can get into it now, I guess, in terms of the outline of the game. But like, where do you even start? And like, because you have so many options now. You can obviously Old World's out, so you can buy stuff. There's 3D printing. There's
I had a
Yep.
point to make for us, Gomo, and this can be under the guidance of Padre Alex. Little challenge, 2 weeks, not 2 weeks, 2 weeks, 2 months, and we're going to have 2 weeks, a first Mordheim game. Yourself and me.
Battle report on the channel.
It doesn't have to be a battle report,
Yeah.
but so I
let's not put too much pressure on you guys. Let's not make it a battle report.
2 months, I reckon.
Yep.
Oh yeah.
So
I
is
reckon
that
that's
you,
good.
Andrew and Colin? Yeah, doing that.
Yeah.
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 So maybe
right.
by the end of this month, next month, we'll have a list, and then the month after, we'll
You know,
have,
like 2 months though, that is Castle Assault.
Well,
isn't
I
it?
mean,
Are you guys just getting ready for Castle? So you're getting, some practice games in, guys, and then by
True.
Castle, you'll be ready to play Mordheim with us.
Oh yeah.
you'll
Yeah,
be
tickets
doing what
left?
Josh does and buying 2 tickets, switching between game systems.
We'll just enter both, but as one person on
We'll
each
just
one and
enter
just
both.
switch.
Yeah.
No. Well, obviously,
I like
practice
those sitcoms
assault.
where you're having dinner with someone
Yeah.
and you keep swapping with someone else.
Yeah.
Try to have dinner with 2 people at once.
I reckon we aim for around 2 months, like a warband. Have a list and have 10.
Yep.
10
I'm actually looking at 2 options. I think you're like the same thing, Andrew. I think you've gone through about 2 or 3 different like potentials. Yeah.
So
just have one, just have a game.
So,
Yeah.
So on that topic, then, what warbands are you guys actually considering? Because there's heaps. There's like, to give context, right? There's the ones that came in the original rulebook, which is like there's 8 warbands that come in the original rulebook. Then there's a whole bunch that were released through the Town Crier publication and like in White Dwarf and everything. So there's probably like another, I'd say at least another 10 that got released through like different publications, and a lot of them were kind of released to fill out, like it was sort of there to be like, okay, here's all the Warhammer armies.
Yeah.
It was kind of like, here's all the Warhammer armies that we make models for. So let's make a warband that sort of corresponds to each one. And then you've got ones that were sort of released. They were either released at some other stage or they were designed by like the same team, but were kind of unreleased because Mordheim sort of stopped being supported around 2004, I think. So it kind of went for about 5 years and actually got some pretty good support. Like there's actually a big model range for Mordheim. If you go and look at all the different warbands, even the ones that got released as like sort of separate non-rulebook releases, even those got like miniatures. And then they even released.
Is that all metal pretty much as well? It was always
pretty
all
much
metal.
all metal. Yeah. So a lot of these warbands got miniatures, but you sort of had like that 5-year patch where Mordheim was being supported. But then even after that, these other warbands got sort of like unofficially released by people that I think worked in the design team or like were part of the, like part of the studio team or whatever it was. So for those who haven't been onto this website yet, if you're interested in checking all this out, go to broheim.net. So that's BROHEIM.net and have a look because they've got a big list of all the warbands, including the ones that are a bit more. Oh, there we go. It's coming up in front of us, isn't it?
Yeah.
There we go. Broheim. So you
Nobody's
go to
on it.
warbands.
So good.
Check this out, and then you've got you can see there's all the 1A. 1A is all the official ones. 1B were the ones that were released in other like Games Workshop publications. So these would have been like Town Crier magazine or in White Dwarf magazine.
Yeah.
And then 1C, 1C I think is stuff that was kind of, it says experimental, but those are ones that like people have play tested a lot and they're kind of deemed to be like fairly balanced. And then beyond that, you've got other ones that are, I think, mostly ones that people have just come up with. Like you can, if you're just playing casually, like you could kind of do whatever you want, really. You can see how many there are there. There's so many.
And then you get right down here.
I think,
wow.
Yeah, exactly.
At Castle and at CanCon too, I think we were playing with grade 1, A, B, and C, but not past grade 1s, wasn't it? And that seems to be
so 1A.
Sorry, what did you just say, Josh? Not what?
Not grade 2 or less.
Oh, cool. Okay, yeah.
So basically, if you can pick any warband that you see in 1A, 1B, or 1C, and you've probably got. I mean, if you scroll down, you've probably got something like 30 or 40 different maybe more.
At least.
So you've pretty much got at least one warband that would correspond to every Warhammer army. So very easy for people who've already got a Warhammer army to just like bring a few of those models over to Mordheim. And then you've got some that are kind of like loosely affiliated, like things like Witch Hunters. Like that's a warband that's like loosely affiliated with an Empire army. But you might like some of the models from say an Empire army would very easily just become like part of a Witch Hunter warband, but then you might want to add a few like extra models in. And things like Carnival of Chaos, which is like it's a Chaos warband, but the models are a little bit more specific than just like you're not just putting like a random Chaos guy on the table. You'd probably want them to be a bit more in theme. But as you can see, there's quite a lot in there. There's even like Lizardmen are getting a warband, and Forest Goblins get a warband, and I played the Pirate warband before. That's pretty cool. Yeah,
Alex,
go ahead.
So, do you guys ever allow in tournaments certain weaker other grades to go in, or is it just it's just one?
Yeah, look, to be honest, I kind of went this way because like a lot of my players pack for this event is piggybacking off a players pack that was done for the event that happened in Canberra, Mordheim Australis, which was earlier this year. Now I've tweaked a few things that I thought, like just based on playing at that event, there were a few things I thought were worth tweaking just to kind of, there was a lot of stuff that worked really well, and there were a few things that didn't quite work that well, so I've tweaked them. But I stuck with the 1A, 1B, 1C because I feel like that kind of covers almost everything. Like I'd be surprised if someone was like, oh, I've got these models, let me find a warband. And then if they can't find a warband that fits the models they've got in that 1A, 1B, 1C, I'd be very surprised. I think the problem with anything below that is it just hasn't really been play tested. It's like someone's kind of come up with a warband and maybe they've just written it, or maybe they've kind of pieced it together off some other stuff they've seen, or like, I don't know, but you know, I think the idea is like at least 1A, 1B, 1C, you can be pretty confident that these are either official or they're ones that people have spent a lot of time on, you know? So,
and you could theme something like if you wanted to bring this pirate warband, like, you know, with like, you know, captains and like all the pirate theme, you could still fit that amongst one of the warbands that's already available.
Well, that example, Pirates is a warband. There is a pirate warband, literally. So if you go through that list, like in detail, I think you'll find it's very hard to find. Like if you think of like all the little aspects of like Warhammer Fantasy, like is there is there like a Slanesh themed warband? There probably is. Or is there I don't know. You've got like, as I said, pretty much
one.
Yeah, like pretty much every race. Pretty much every race in the Warhammer world is represented in the warbands, and then there's a number of races that have like multiple warbands. Like you've got an Orc and Goblin warband, but you've got a Black Orc warband, you've got an Orc Goblin warband, you've got I'm not sure. There's also 2 Beastmen ones because they released one and then they re-released it like a year later. So I don't know.
I love the Forest Goblin one. I've got the Forest Goblin one. I'm like,
exactly. Yeah. So like. Here's the thing, like you can, you can sort of, I think 1A, 1B, and 1C, I'd be really surprised if someone came to me and said, oh, the warband I really wanted to play wasn't on that list. Like I'd be surprised because I think there's pretty much everything that you'd want is on there. So
yes,
you know,
happy days.
Cool. Yeah, well, I mean, to answer your question, I don't 100% know, but the ones I've been sort of leaning towards, like I'm redoing an Empire army in Old World for Mordheim, so I was like looking at different sculpts, 3D printers for that. So I was like, oh, I could do that because that way I'm sort of painting some stuff anyway. But then when I was looking for 3D models, I wasn't planning on doing this, but then I found one of the manufacturers we can go through it. They've got like a cool Orc one as well, and I was like, oh, there is an Orc one. Maybe I can do that one. So I don't know.
It's so beautiful.
Yeah, it just looked really cool because I think, and that I guess that's one of the things like we have to talk about now, but whenever is. Yeah, I mean, how much like is 3D printing opening up to do this, or you don't really need to worry about that, or you know, like how much do you modify your guys over time if they've got different weapons?
Well,
or
if you were being really okay, so there's a couple of answers to that question. One of them is I'm actually getting for the event. I'm actually getting some tokens made up as part of the like swag that everyone's going to get. I'm getting some tokens made up that have little weapon icons on them. So as you add weapons to your warband, and at the beginning, I've pretty much outlined in the player pack, like from the beginning of the event, you want to have like your models like pretty much WYSIWYG. So what you see is what you get. So like at the very start of your warband, don't say, oh, this guy's got a crossbow if the model just doesn't have a crossbow. But later on, you're going to have enough money to be able to buy extra equipment. So like, I don't like, as you go, you're going to want to buy cool stuff for your models. So like there's going to be a little token that has a crossbow on it. So you can put that with that model. So at least your opponent knows like, okay, well, that guy does have that. You've got to, with Mordheim, you've got to be like, not every model is always going to exactly line up with, like, as the campaign goes on and you're able to equip them better. Like you might have a guy that has, you're like, oh, I'm going to buy this guy a pistol. I think it's pretty reasonable to assume that a pistol could be concealed, right? Like if the guy's wearing a cloak, he might pull the pistol out from his cloak, or he might have a dagger sheathed in his boot or something, right? So there's like that kind of stuff I'm really not worried about. It's more just the sort of like, you know, being reasonable. People don't tend to have, I mean, you could very well have a model that has magnets and you can like remove the arm and put like a different arm on or something if you wanted to. But
I mean, these, I mean, the other option I was thinking, I mean, it's a bit stupid, I guess, but you could actually make up a couple of extra guys too. Like if you know that you're going to upgrade, like because you might, if you play a certain warband, I would imagine enough, you might go, I tend to upgrade it to this.
So that's kind of the second answer to that question, which is that, people do that. So you might have a warband, a good example being my Witch Hunter warband. The maximum number of models you can have in the warband at any given time is 12, but I typically bring about 20 models to an event because the other 8 models are replacement guys, and like, oh, okay, well, at some point I'm going to want to have a guy that has a crossbow. So later on in the event, I'm going to probably pay the money for the guy to have a crossbow so he can be like, that guy can come into the warband later on. So like you want to have a few extras because they're going to cover you for upgrades. Also, some of your models are going to die throughout the campaign. So you may want to replace them with a different model so that like you have, oh, cool, now that guy's dead, I'm going to bring in this guy. Who
like we're all veteran Warhammer fantasy players here. So 20 models is really not, you know,
that's to be honest with you,
such a tiny amount.
That's one of the biggest selling points for Mordheim, in my opinion, is that turn up with 20 models and there's your warband. Like you, it's like, you know, between now and let's say if you've never painted a Mordheim warband, you could sit down right now and by August you'd have it painted. Like it's 20, you know, most of them we're talking between 10 to 20. So
easy. The terrain seems like more work than the warband
that's a whole different thing, isn't it?
Although to be fair, the terrain's much less of a, it used to be, when I first started playing it when I was a teenager, we kind of just scratch built stuff from like, and it wasn't very good. It was just us cutting stuff out of cardboard and whatever. But, you know, as an adult now, like, you know, there's access to 3D printing is amazing for Mordheim because there'd be so many files out there for like ruined buildings and stuff. But scratch building it, I don't think is overly difficult either. But anyway, I mean that was always
his printer that he might be getting. That's going to be running
exactly. Definitely something that you want with Mordheim. A Mordheim table, you really need dense terrain because a big part of Mordheim that I suppose is quite different to regular Warhammer. Obviously, each individual model is essentially its own unit. It can go off and do its own thing. You buy models like with your henchmen, you buy them as groups. So you might be like, okay, I'm buying for the Witch Hunters, okay, I'm going to buy 3 flagellants and they're all going to be armed and equipped the same way. But once they go on the table, they can wander off and do their own thing individually. So like those guys don't have to stay together. But essentially, because each model does its own thing, a huge part of Mordheim is the interaction between miniatures and terrain. So if you just have like a flat board with a few bits and bobs here, it's not as interesting. Whereas if you have like heaps of buildings, you want little alleyways and little lanes and little kind of streets, and like you want rubble and debris, and you know, you want like, oh, here's a statue, or here's a like a little a walled off area. These things all contribute to the enjoyment of the game because a lot of it is played vertically as well as like, you know, you're not just going, I mean, Warhammer is a great game, of course, but you're very much playing on a flat table, and every now and then your models might move over a hill or whatever. But in Mordheim, you've got guys climbing up into buildings and up into the top of a tower, or jumping across like you can literally jump across gaps between buildings, and you can have guys that if your guys are fighting on a rooftop, and Josh, we've had this before when we played it. I think one of your guys like knocked one of mine off a ladder, and he fell like 2 stories and like landed on the street below, and like, and I
That's right.
and I remember during the event in Canberra, I remember one of my like crossbowmen like sniping an orc guy from the top of a tower, and he fell about like 4 stories off the top of a tower and got killed. So yeah, you get cool stuff like that, and like the game is very much you need terrain with like ideally like multiple stories and
that's what I've been looking for.
Totally.
I mean, there is heaps. It's just a matter of getting it printed really, because I mean the resin's good, but I think the FDMs will shine on some of those ones probably.
Alex, can I ask a question? Obviously, if myself and Gomo are going to be coming up with a warband, how would you say to somebody to come into the game, pick a warband? As in, like, not so I'm looking at a few that I like. So I suppose my question is going to be like, do you just find something that you've got the models for, or that you like the sound of, or do you recommend certain warbands for people? Like, what if we're going to be playing? What would be your sort of suggestions in that?
Good question. So obviously, a very simple answer when it comes to any kind of like hobby wargaming is like pick models that you like, and that you are going to be motivated to paint. Because like there's no point in picking something and then it's like really arduous to paint it, and like really, if you don't have fun painting it or don't have fun like kind of collecting it, it's probably not going to be that much fun on the tabletop either. But that's the first step. But if you've got a few different things in mind that tick those boxes, me personally, when it comes to Mordheim, I at least like to have something that is going to be competitive in every phase of the game. So like, can my warband get around the table and do cool stuff? Like, yes, okay, great. Can they fight? Okay, yes. Can they shoot? Okay, and do they have some way of casting spells? And if it kind of fits all 4 of those things, that's something that I think is kind of cool. I like my witch hunters because there's guys with crossbows, there's guys with sword and shield, there's guys with flails, there's like, you've kind of got a good mix of different equipment and stuff like that. But I'm also doing like at the moment
one show, like it's just obviously it's not you just don't dominate shooting because you're dwarves. Like you like something that every
exactly.
Would you say
I
was gonna say, would you say one phase is more important than the other? Like, like Warhammer, it's a little bit probably movement, but
movement's pretty important. I think the thing with Mordheim tends to be, I think like positioning of your models is pretty crucial. Like if you put your guys out in the open, they're going to get shot at, or they're going to get you're just leaving yourself open to like losing models unnecessarily. So you kind of want to have guys like being able to, you want to have your guys kind of moving in and out of cover. But there's also things like, for example, there are like war beasts in Mordheim, things like like the witch hunters have got warhounds, and I know that like beastmen have got hounds. A lot of like the undead have got dire wolves. These models can't go up into buildings, like they can't climb up ladders or get up walls and stuff. So if you take a whole warband that's full of like these fast moving beasts, and if someone then puts all their warband in a building, like you're basically not going to be able to fight them. Right. So you've got to have some balance to it. When I played down in Canberra, one of the guys that was playing in our group, Luke, he came along with Beastmen, and I think half his warband was warhounds. So I put all my witch hunters in like a bunch of buildings and was like shooting crossbows at everybody. And he could only really get up into he could only get up into the buildings with like some of his actual beastmen rather than like the hounds. So you sort of have to be a little bit. I think like a balanced warband should have a bit of everything, in my opinion. Not all of them can do that. Like like undead, for example, you're not going to have really much of a shooting phase. You might have like, I think you can get maybe a couple of models that can get like a bow, but even then they're not very skillful. So you're sort of like, you're kind of like pushing shit uphill a bit.
Not much of a movement phase either, from what I've seen.
Well, the undead have got some fun there are some fun things they can
Spells?
do.
Or-
Movement spells, yeah.
Well, you've got movement spells, but you've also got spells like there's a spell that lets you just raise a zombie. I think it's like somewhere within like 6 inches of the necromancer. So
Yeah,
you
okay.
can do stuff where like you hide a necromancer in a building and then like literally just raise a zombie on like the other side of a wall and then they go and fight someone, and like so you can do some interesting like
Yeah.
there's
Yes.
the undead are a funny dichotomy because like for example, half your warband is going to be zombies because they're super cheap, and you really don't care if you lose them or like if they get killed, it's so cheap to buy another zombie, it doesn't even matter. But then you've got like the vampire is unbelievably good, like has the best stat line in the game pretty much, like to start with. And then you've got dire wolves, which like have an 18-inch charge range, and they get 2 strength 4 attacks on the charge, which in Mordheim terms is just unbelievably good because you can just charge anybody pretty much, and the rest of your warband basically just shambles forwards at 4 inches. But it's kind of funny. But the thing with the undead is that despite their crappy movement, they all cause fear, and what you'll find is that the leadership values across like the models in Mordheim, you don't have guys with leadership 10 or even leadership 9. Most warbands, like even like a human warband, the best leadership from anyone in the warband is probably going to be leadership 8, and they can only project a 6-inch leadership bubble. So you'll often find that if you just shamble your warband up, people try and charge them and half of them just fail their fear test. So you can actually dictate the game a bit because your opponent then gets sort of stuck trying to engage with you, but then you're able to sort of like flip the scales a bit. Because the situation I've had a lot when I've played with the undead is you shamble a whole lot of zombies up in front of them and go, all right, charge me. And then they declare like 5 charges and only 2 of them end up passing their fear test. And then you just gang up on those 2 guys with heaps of zombies. So you end up with like 2 guys fighting like a horde of zombies on their own. So you can kind of gain the initiative from like that happening, which is sort of funny. And meanwhile, your vampire just runs around just like laying a beat down on everybody. But yeah, like it's one of those things where there are some warbands that don't really compete a lot in certain phases of the game, and the undead are the example of that more than any others, I think. But they do some stuff that other warbands can't do. Like there's some funky stuff. Like a great example is one of the spells you get is this thing where if you've taken someone's hero out of action, and that model is then they roll the dead result on the injury table. You can then after the game, if you know that spell, you automatically get like a zombie with all that model's equipment and all their stat line into your warband.
Awesome.
So if you've killed someone's hero, you've now got a zombie with like heavy armor and a pistol and a crossbow and a sword. Like so, and it might be that you've just killed a dude who was strength 4, toughness 4. Now you've got a strength 4, toughness 4 zombie. Just like what are you doing?
Oh, that's cool.
You can do some cool stuff, and I don't know. There's some really funky. There's some very funky rules that the undead have got that like no one else gets. So like there's a thing where if you find if you can like one of the results on the injury table is like held hostage. So if a model's taken out of action, they might be held hostage by the the enemy warband, and normally what you would do is you'd sell them back to their warband and like get some money for them, but the undead can opt just to kill them and get a free zombie in their warband. So it's cool. You've got I wouldn't discourage the undead because they're a pretty cool warband, but you just have to accept that you're not going to really be doing much shooting or anything, so but yeah.
Do you see within Australia, like with the warbands, do you see like is there a bit of a meta? Like, is undead like a meta? And I heard Skaven are pretty good as.
Yeah, the Skaven. The thing. One thing with Mordheim is it's definitely an advantage to have, like, especially at the beginning of a campaign. It's advantageous to have lots of models on the board. And Skaven do it almost better than anybody because they have their maximum. Like when you read your warband rules, every warband has like a maximum number of guys that you can have in the warband, and Skaven have got a maximum of 20, which is like more than I think anybody. Like witch hunters get 12. So like it's a big discrepancy, but Skaven can just take a heap of cheap guys at the beginning, and just having more bodies on the board makes a big difference. as your warband levels up, you're probably going to have guys that are like more powerful and have access to better equipment and stuff like that. But yeah, there's to some extent that's sort of part of it. Like models that have, warbands that have got lots of models on the board will have a certain advantage over others anyway. But to be honest, like even if I think back to like playing it in Canberra earlier this year, I came up against a possessed warband that only had about 6 models in it, and I had 12. And I'm like, oh sweet, I've got this guy covered. But he had 3 of those models were like 2 or 3 wound guys, which is actually very good in Mordheim. Having more than 1 wound is like very rare, and it's very good. And he had a few other guys that had leveled up quite a lot. So his guys, whilst he didn't have quantity, his guys were far better than mine were. And I learnt the hard way, because the way the scenario worked out was I couldn't really rush him with I couldn't gang up on him the way I wanted to. And he basically just ran in with 3 guys that were way more powerful than what mine were and just took out my entire warband. So there is the flip side of it where sometimes having those really a good example being the possessed warbands, you can have the actual possessed models, which are quite literally, it's a cultist who's really gone really far down the rabbit hole, and then he's become a half demon, and their stat line is insane. And as they level up, they become really, really scary to fight against. So if you can have a possessed model that makes it 4 or 5 games into a campaign, they're really strong, and then at that point you can kind of make up for the fact that you don't have quite as many guys on the table. So yeah, it's kind of, that's the best explanation I could give you. I think at the very beginning, having more numbers is definitely an advantage, but later on it starts to level out when you get people kind of leveling their models up a bit.
Again, we probably don't have time to go through the whole rules and all that stuff at the moment. People would have to read them, but I was looking at other suggestions and people were saying stuff and potentially it's a bit gamey, maybe it's not, but with those henchmen, don't put them all in one, actually spread them out. So because as they level up, that whole henchman group gets, you get more rolls, you get more chances on those. What's it called?
There's 2 ways of thinking about it. So there's one of the when one of your henchman groups levels up, one of the results you can roll is called the Lad's Got Talent. And that means that one of your henchmen gets promoted to be a hero. And that's really good because it gives them access to different skills. It also gives them their kind of experience table becomes way bigger, meaning that they will, once they're a hero, they are then going to have way more level ups over a period of time. Whereas the henchman can only level up to a point. A henchman group is never going to level up more than maybe 3 or 4 levels, whereas the heroes can keep going for ages. So you sort of want your guys to get upgraded to heroes if possible. So one way of doing it is having a whole lot of henchmen groups of 1 model each, and then roll there's a higher chance that as time goes on that some of those guys are going to get upgraded to heroes. However, the downside to that is if you've got a henchman group, maybe you've got 4 guys that are making up a henchman group, they've all got to be armed the same way. They all level up the same way. However, what can happen is you've now got, provided there's at least 1 model still in that henchman group surviving, you can then buy models and actually buy them into that henchman group. So what that means is they come in with the same stat line as those guys. So you might have guys who've already leveled up a couple of times, and now you're buying more guys to actually. So they're coming in, and you're getting them at the new stat line, if that makes sense. So you can't. It feels do that maybe. You can't do that though if you've got 1 dude in a henchman group and he just gets killed. Well, all his experience and all his stat line is gone now. You would have to buy a new guy, and he'd just be from scratch,
It's a bit of a gamble. Okay, that's cool. A bit of meta game.
And then look, definitely, just like with any game, there's ways you can do things more efficiently and more effectively, right? So there are definitely strategies of how you do that, but whatever, it comes down to just how you want to play it, I suppose. But I don't think personally, I'm I can't be bothered trying to do it all like that. It's just take the models you want.
Super gaming.
It's not.
That's what I like about Mordheim. It just seems more like it is getting into that role play more, getting out of the game less. So it's competitive, but you got the role play in there. So it's you don't want to be the guy just rocking up with just a competitive list, and it just doesn't seem thematic at all. Like to me,
yeah,
not at all.
In my opinion as well, like Mordheim is the ultimate game where like you could, like you can have games where you won the game, but you actually came out way worse than your opponent. Because you might like win the objective or because most games you're going to have some sort of scenario, you've got to capture this building, or you've got to like steal this treasure chest, or you've got to find more weird stone than your opponent or whatever. And normally the reward you get for winning the game is like you get extra experience. You normally get extra opportunities to search for like equipment and stuff like that. But what can often happen is if you kind of throw your whole warband forward and try and like, okay, I'm going to win the game and I'm going to, and you lose half your warband, your opponent, like when it comes down to the injury table, you might lose like 3 or 4 dudes from your warband, and your opponent's guys all make full recoveries. And it's like your opponent's going, oh, well, I lost the game, but my guys all survived and I've actually gained experience. Whereas you're thinking, oh, crap, I won the game, but I've actually lost 2 or 3 really important models. And now I have to find money to replace them and stuff like that. So it's kind of it's the sort of game where it's not really about winning and losing. It's more just about like sort of storytelling. And Josh, I mean, I'll hand this over to Josh because I'm doing a lot of talking here. But Josh, your experience, obviously, you kind of jumped back in in Canberra a few months back and played. You probably played what 3 or 4 games of Mordheim that weekend. And what was your because you hadn't played it for a long time and you'd never played the campaign rules, you were saying. So what was your experience of it just kind of coming back in?
It was great. I think that's exactly it wasn't. Yeah, the outcome of the game didn't necessarily dictate what happened in terms of how successful or not successful the warband was. There was, and it felt like there was 2 phases, right? Like you play that game, and you might win, you might lose, but because the outcome of the game wasn't as crucial as say playing in a full tournament or even just playing a regular game Warhammer, it is played in a less or sort of a more convivial sort of atmosphere where random stuff happens, sort of have a laugh. Then you kind of at the points at the end, and then you actually get into the real game of Mordheim, which is rolling your exploration dice, trying to work out what things you're going to spend on who dies afterwards, and that's often where some of the more interesting stories come from in terms of the actual the day of the playing their campaign out and that type of thing, and really I feel like playing the battle on the table is only half the game. Really,
absolutely.
Because that exploration phase and expanding your group guys and actually what happens on the injury chart, like that is actually massive part of it, and you can almost spend as much time post game doing that as you actually. Some of those games can, you on the table you can be like 10, 15, 20 minutes, and then suddenly you're rolling explorations that sometimes pop up sort of things you got to do, like your guy gets stuck in a pit and suddenly you're fighting a duel against a pit fighter and you're actually rolling out this fight. It's just like, what's happening? I find that there's a lot of narrative that comes from the game itself, and it's just built into it so heavily, and it's very hard to if you're playing it.
I was going to say, just to add to what Josh is saying, go to whoever's got their Mordheim book handy, go to the exploration chart section under income, and literally read through. There's probably about 4 or 5 pages of these are all just
because it's all to do with those double. Is this the one where you rolled X number of dice? Whatever it is?
Yeah. I'll let Josh continue because I remember Josh, you came up with some fun. You got some really cool rolls when you did. I remember when we played our game, and then you came up with some pretty interesting rolling afterwards. There was some cool stuff that you did with your warband.
I think
you get a hired sword. You get like a free
warband
hired
sword. Playing,
yeah, I got a hired. I got a I think I bought a warlock, but I brought my damsel model so I could just plonk her on there. I think I did some kind of jewelry store. I think I found a jewelry or something like that. I got a whole bunch of gold that was really nice as well. Probably the thing I most remember, Alex, and this is to your
my detriment, probably.
To your detriment.
Yeah, probably.
That's what you rolled afterward. I think you had the well result.
Oh, the well. That's right.
And you poison yourself. What is it?
Yeah, so there's
the
a thing.
time.
There's a thing where it's like, oh, you found a well. Like you can send one of your models down the well to try and find some like weird stone, and like you basically you roll a toughness test because they've either found what they went down there for and they've come back up safely, or they've like managed to drink some poison well water and they're basically out. Like you literally can't play them for the next game. And I had the same model. I rolled that result twice. Like I rolled it the first time I rolled it. I sent one of my guys down, and he'd been pretty useless throughout like the campaign. He kept injuring himself, and he had like 2 broken hands, and he could barely wield a weapon. I think he was down to weapon skill 1 because he kept like injuring himself. So I was like, all right, you can go down the well, and then he drank the well water and like missed a game. And then on his return game, he was back in the warband again after his little hiatus, and he came back to the warband, and we found another well. So guess who went down again? And guess who drank the well water again? I think I can't remember what was his name. I think his name was Kurtz, and he was this guy. Yeah, so he was kind of like by the end of the campaign, he was sort of like the bumbling idiot of the warband. Like it was just comic relief because anytime anything bad happened, it happened to him. So
get down there, Kurtz.
Get down the well, Kurtz. Now remember, don't drink the well water. He's like, okay. Like sculling it.
Oh dear.
So what? Yeah. Sorry, Josh. What did you take? Did you take your own little warband that you'd made, and what was it?
I just scratched together a bunch of Bretonnian models that I hadn't touched for 15 years because they're all on foot. You know, like these, like my foot knights that I'd painted when I was 15. Because I'm like, I need some knights on a foot. I don't have it. Like, I was trying to just scramble together stuff. So I had some men at arms, obviously that were painted okay, and some bowmen, and I could use some squires. But yeah, the foot knights, man, I didn't have any foot knights. But yeah, I just ran the regular Bretonnian list, which wasn't like it. It did seem to lack a little bit of the flavor that I was hoping it would have. And it turns out there's actually 2 Bretonnian lists in the ratings.
Which one is it? There's Bretonnian Chapel Guard, and there's
and then above it there's Bretonnian Knights in the 1B. The Bretonnian Knights is the one that was published in Town.
Right past it.
And that's the one I ran, but I am actually going to go the Chapel Knights when I go to Castle, I reckon. Just because it's got a few more. It's got a lot of more interesting sort of fluffy rules going on there. And I found the regular Brett one. Just the options of the warband. Some of it lacked a little bit of like theminess, and it was sort of limited, I guess, is how I'd describe it. Can
I bring a couple from the Bretonnian list? You know how they got the Robin Hood team? Can they fit in there?
As in,
you know, the squires.
As in, well, there's squires in the list.
There's like the 3 Robin Hood guys.
Oh, like Bertrand and
Can they fit in there?
And that kind of guys.
Sneaky little.
I feel like you could use them inside because they'd be good hero models for like you. Because do you have squires as heroes? You've got squires as heroes, don't you?
No.
Oh yeah.
Okay. So there is squires were heroes in the original warband, but in the Chapel Guard they're just henchmen. But they're the only henchmen that can get the Lad's Got Talent. All the other henchmen can't in the Chapel Guard.
So I think expanding. Oh, sorry. You keep going, Josh. I apologize.
No, go for it.
Oh, sorry. I was going to say expanding on what you just mentioned before, Josh. I think there's kind of like essentially when you play a game of Mordheim, you can just go play a one-off game of Mordheim and that's fine. But like you essentially, if you're playing it as part of a campaign, then after each game, you've essentially got this whole. There's basically you do a lot of dice rolling to determine what happens to your warband. Like did they find treasure? Did they come across any interesting things that might be like extra equipment, or did they come across some other stuff that they can use? How much money have you managed to earn as part of the game, and also things like and then you roll on the injury chart. So what's happened to your warriors who have been taken out of action? Sometimes good things happen occasionally, like, oh, your warrior survived and gained extra experience because of all the things that happened. Or other times it's really bad. Like, you can just have models that it's not uncommon for your warband leader to just get killed in the first game. So I've had that happen several times. But you sort of don't want to get too attached to your models, because they will. You could have your favorite guy get taken out of action by some silly roll, like, he tripped over and fell off a building and like got taken out of action, and then when you roll the injury roll, he's just dead. So like, it's a lot harder for the heroes to die than it is for the henchmen to die. But you have to accept that, like, your models, if you play a whole bunch of games, like if you're going to play 5, 6, 7 games of Mordheim, your models are very unlikely to make it through all that unscathed. Like, at some point they're going to get injured, or their stats are going to change, or they're going to, they might not be able to use the weapons that you want. Like, the injuries sometimes can be brutal. Like, okay, this guy can only fight with a one-handed weapon now, or this guy can't use a shield anymore, or this guy's now, his ballistic skill's gone down because he can't see properly and stuff like that. So there's all these different, like, you might equip this dude with, like, you have these things where, like, you might equip a guy with, like, a really good shooting weapon, and then give him extra skills, because as you play more games, your models are going to level up and learn extra skills, and you might be like, okay, this guy's now got, like, for example, there's some really good shooting skills where you're like, right, I can now move and shoot my crossbow, right?
Is there a double shoot? I think I saw. Or something?
Yeah, there's a combo, and I'll come to one of the tweaks I made to the event pack. One of the combos that is actually very good is you can go. One of the skills allows you to shoot the weapon twice in the same phase. So you could be like, I'm now going to take 2 shots with my crossbow. And the other one that combos nicely with that is you can ignore all the cover rules. So you could see, as long as you can see a dude like poking out from behind a building, you can shoot at him without taking like a negative for him being in cover. So it's really good if you've got a guy with, like, say, ballistic skill 3 or 4. I mean, 4 ideally, because you're like hitting them on 3s, and then there's no cover modifier, and you're shooting them twice. It's like it's very good. But you might have this guy who's like leveled up and he's a real expert at this, but then like he gets an injured, like he loses an eye, and now he's like, actually his ballistic skill goes down. And you're like, oh my god, I've spent all this time building this guy up to be like really good at this thing, and then like now he can't really do it very well. But that leads me to one of the tweaks I made was anytime when you select a skill as part of because when you roll, you're rolling on a table to see like what happens when your guys level up, and sometimes they will gain an extra stat. It'll be like, oh, +1 weapon skill, or +1 strength, or +1 toughness, or whatever. But if you roll a certain result, it says new skill, and then you've got like a whole list of skills you can choose from. Essentially, you can't double up the skills in the warband, meaning like once you've chosen a skill for a particular warrior, that skill is now unavailable for anybody. Like there's and even if that model is taken out of action and dies, that skill's gone. Like you can't then reuse the same skill.
Can't even get it back.
And the idea behind because what can happen if you're being a bit like, I have played like a no holds barred like campaign before without like any restrictions, and you did find the same combos would sort of be like, someone's now got 5 models with exactly the same skill combo. And that that gets a bit boring, but also gets a bit like, once you've got someone double shotting you with 5 different crossbowmen and they all ignore cover, it's like, oh, like any of my models that like pokes out from behind a building just gets killed. So it's
just with that, like that. Those little mods, like what are the popular ones? Because I think we talked about this on the chat that we had. Like, are you running that other one, which is like you don't get saving mods for your strength? Is that a thing that people do, or not?
So that was one I'd never played that before until the event in Canberra, the Mordheim Australis event, and I thought it was excellent. Initially, I looked at it and was like, "Wow, that's a really big change." But it's one of these things where armor is very expensive in Mordheim. Like if you look at the cost of like
it's heavy armor, like 50 or something, isn't it?
Yeah, heavy armor is cost probably double the amount of like the actual guy who's actually wearing it. It's kind of like I'd rather have it's like I'd rather buy 2 models than buy one suit of heavy armor. Like
backpack on. Like,
Yeah, well, you're better off
that's
having
right,
more
yeah.
models than having like one dude with armor on. But
Yeah.
what would normally happen if you're not running like that little rules tweak where, okay, the way it's working in this players pack is normally you would modify, just like in 6th edition Warhammer, normally you would modify the armor save based on the strength of the attack, right? So strength 3 is no modifier, strength 4 would be -1, strength 5 would be -2, etc., right? But in Mordheim, most guys don't have an armor save, and if they do, it might just be a shield or a light armor or something. So maybe they've got a 6-up save, and then someone runs in with strength 4 and it's just irrelevant. So, or like they get hit with a crossbow and it's like, well, no armor save anyway because it's strength 4. So at least if you say, well, strength doesn't modify armor save, there are still some weapons that have like an armor save modifier built in. Like an axe is always an additional -1 to your armor. So now an axe actually becomes a really useful item because you're like, well, okay, I could have a dude who's strength 4, but he's now got this axe and he's at least getting a -1 armor save.
At the same time,
and
if he's strength 3 with an axe, he's still getting -1 as well.
Exactly. But these are things that actually become like normally under the normal Mordheim rules, the axe is not that useful because a lot of the time, if a model has better strength than strength 3, they're pretty much ignoring armor on almost everybody anyway because people just don't have a good armor save. So it's like the axe becomes the axe is almost redundant at that point. So now there's more incentive to take it. And like something like a 6-up save, when you've got basically no one modifying it, it's actually useful. Like me and Josh played a game, and I think 3 turns in a row, I kept trying to take out this one like irritating peasant. He just kept rolling 6+ and saving it.
The shield.
Get rid of the glove.
I think it was the 3-arm shield again.
It was 3 combats in a row. It was 3 combats in a row where I got a wound through, and Josh just rolled a 6 and saved it. And it was just so infuriating. So stuff like that.
Okay.
And Mordheim's
very much doing that. Like, is there a standard, or it's just every tournament thing you go to, people play it different? Like,
look, I mean, I don't think there's any standard to Mordheim. I mean, as far as I'm aware, there are definitely little groups and communities that are playing with their own house rules and stuff. So I don't think there's any specific standard to it. I think there's just different rules that you hear about that people are using, and you kind of you adopt things that you like, and some stuff you take and other stuff you leave, I guess. But
I think some of the ones that you're taking and that were at Mordheim Australis, I think Dono is sort of trying to push it as a something that can be sort of adopted sort of across the community as a relatively standardized set of house rules.
Josh is the other one is changing the weapon skill chart.
Yeah.
Huh?
You want to change the weapon skill chart.
The
old world. Use the old world weapon skill.
It's on 2s.
I don't think we're hitting that one yet.
Across the board.
I don't think we're hitting that one yet.
Weapon skill 10, weapon skill 1, 3 up.
The other really good one is that if you're dual wielding, like an extra hand weapon, because that's really good in Mordheim because you get a whole extra attack where normally just rolling a single dice, and the punishing way in Warhammer is you just got 1 dice. You got to roll your 4 up. Don't roll it. Having 2 dice is really good, and often does really significantly outweigh the value of a shield or a buckler or that type of thing. So the convention that's commonly it was done by at Australis, and I think it's done at Castle as well. It's just -1 to hit if you are dual wielding, which is across the board. As a way of just trying to balance it out a little bit, because otherwise it's a bit too good.
Yeah. And to give you guys an idea, like you can dual wield any weapons in Mordheim in terms of like a pretty common thing that people would do if they're trying to optimize would be it's very cheap to buy like a mace or a club. They're like 3 gold crowns, which is almost nothing. So people just buy two maces and they equip like most of their guys with the same combo. So all these guys are running around. They're pretty affordable, and they just run around with 2 attacks. And if you can somehow get an upgrade, like if you manage to roll the extra attack upgrade, then you could have a whole henchman group where they've you could have a whole henchman group where they've all got 3 attacks because they're wielding. It's like but essentially having the -1 to hit, when you're dual wielding.
Sometimes is it? Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, I mean, and to be fair, like I found that I played 8 games across that weekend in Canberra, and I would say half the time I would opt just to like fight with one weapon, and half the time I would be like, you know what, it's worth me having 2 attacks in this situation. So I found that it was like, if I had a guy where if I was hitting them on 3+, I'd probably be happy to cop the -1 and dual wield, because at least I'm still hitting on 4s. Whereas like if I'm already hitting on 4s and then I'm going to be hitting on 5s, I'd probably opt just to stick with the one weapon. So yeah,
so you don't have to. So sorry, you don't have to dual wield. You can say no. It's going to pick up one.
Correct. You could have a dude who's got, because literally you just as you go, you're buying equipment for your models. You can have a model with 10 different weapons, and when you're fighting, like as you charge into combat, you just decide what weapon you're going to use. Like,
is that last the whole combat? Is that the same sort of thing as Warhammer?
I think so. Like... Yeah. So you could charge in and be like, all right, well, I'm going to use my halberd. He might have a halberd, he might have a sword, he might have a shield, he might have an axe, he might have everything. So like it's kind of like
Warcraft pouch.
They're all Black Orcs.
It's like in, I don't know if you guys, I played, I'm a big Legend of Zelda fan, and you have like your equipment list is like absurd. You're like, oh, I've got 10 different shields I can pick from, and somehow I'm carrying all of them in my pocket. Yeah, it's like, I'm going to switch to this weapon now, and you're like, so like it's kind of like that a little bit, where you can just have your dudes as you go on in the campaign. You're going to just keep buying more equipment. So like you're going to have guys that have got like 3 or 4 different weapon options at some point, and like so you can just do what you want. Like you might be like, all right, well, I kind of need the extra armor save here, so I'm going to like fight with sword and shield. But then later on in the game, you might be like, oh, I'm going to fight with 2 weapons now, you know? So
sweet.
But yeah, I suppose those modifications are really just to make the game, like, it's not the most balanced game. If you play it enough, you'll realize there are things that are like pretty strong, but like I feel like those amendments do help to just kind of put things in balance a little bit better.
I was interested to find your experience about, because the other variation that I saw was, you know, the fact that every hero that fights in the battle and isn't dead can do the exploration roll. So, because in the rule book originally that it's if they're taken out of action they can't explore. Is that the original rule?
I think so. Yeah, like the idea of it being the idea of having that is so that, like, Mordheim is best experienced when stuff's happening and you're able to earn money and you're able to buy stuff and you're able to roll on the, like, to me it's like you kind of want to enable players to do those things rather than you want people to get more exploration dice if possible, because that way there's more cool stuff that can happen. And then also you'll probably find, I mean, you know, Gomo and Andrew, when you guys do play a couple of games, you'll find that your warband could be amazing, but then you have one bad game and like you roll poorly on the injury rolls and all of a sudden you've lost 2 or 3 dudes. You've then got to find the money to actually like buy new guys to replace them, or sometimes you just don't have enough money, and it might take another couple of games it might take a couple more games of getting more money before you kind of build your warband up again. So you kind of get this thing where you're like, oh, my warband's amazing. And then like you literally can have one rough game and then it's like, oh my God, my warband's terrible. And it kind of, over a period of time, like in the Canberra event, I was like, I had a couple of good wins to start the event. And then it was like, yes, this is great. And I played Frank and like half my dudes died. And I was like, no. And then I had to, so you're kind of going in this, like, it sort of comes and goes in waves a little bit. So with that, I kind of look at it as like, as long as the model hasn't died, like your heroes are the ones that give you access to more dice on the exploration table. So literally when the game finishes, any surviving heroes, that gives you 1 dice per hero on the exploration roll. And then if you won the game, so if you completed the scenario or whatever, you get an extra dice on top of that as well. So ideally, in some situations, you're rolling maybe 5 or 6 dice on the exploration table. That's going to give you lots of weird stone, which is how you sell that to get money. Or you're also going to have a good chance of getting rolling doubles, rolling triples, rolling quadruples. If you do that, exactly, that's where you get the funky things like, oh, I rolled a double. Oh, it's a well. Oh, I rolled a triple. Oh, it's
double one.
Oh, I rolled. You know, there's one where it's there's one where you find a corpse and then you get to roll on another table to see, like, you get to loot the corpse and find out like what loot they had on them and stuff. And there's other ones where you found there's other ones where you find a blacksmith, and the blacksmith like makes some extra weapons for you, and like, so there's cool stuff like that. But that's, you've got to have like, you've got to be rolling, like the more dice you can roll on the exploration table, the more chance of cool stuff like that happening. So it's like, why are we limiting? Like, I don't want to limit people like to.
But it adds fun
like,
to that whole element of the
exactly.
game.
Like Mordheim is all about the fun stories and the cool stuff.
Especially
So
when
like,
you're on a weekend like that, we got 2 days. If you're running a big campaign with your mates for months or something, I could see how you might not slow it up, but slow it up, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
I'm getting told off for being too excited.
Yeah. All good.
Anyway, my kids are sleeping upstairs. My kids are sleeping upstairs, so I'm being told off for
too much Mordheim enthusiasm.
Yeah. I'll dial my excitement down just a little bit, but yeah. So to me, that particular change, and I kind of just lifted that off the other pack anyway, so it wasn't really me that came up with it, but I like it because it just gives you like you want fun and cool stuff to happen. So like, why limit that? Like, just,
absolutely.
You know, and it also means
makes it less unforgiving, right? Like if you end up getting taken out a whole bunch of dudes, and you end up rolling with 1 or 2 dice, like I just feel like that'd be very sad.
It verges the warbands on it. I'd imagine more and more if that's happening. You can't catch back up. You know,
one thing that happens if people are worried about, if people get too like worried about like, you know, kind of exploration roles and stuff, what can happen is that like people will play conservatively, and that's not how Mordheim should be played. And also people kind of go, oh, it's pretty risky for me to go and for me to capture the objective or whatever. I'll probably like take some casualties. It's not worth it. So then you get people either not really playing the scenario properly, or they voluntarily route. And voluntarily routing is literally when you go, okay, I'm like, beginning of your turn, you go, all right, like I'm conceding. And then like that way people do that because then they kind of don't take any further casualties. And then any guys that are still on the table are still going to get like experience rolls and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But to me, that's not fun because like you've set your models up, you've got the game going. And then like you, like if people are taking it too seriously, they do that like turn 3. And it's like, well, you just played like a 3-turn game. Like, why do that? But people do it because they're scared of like, oh, if too many of my guys get taken out, I won't get to like, it's going to like really hinder me because then I won't have many rolls on the exploration table, and then I won't get enough money, and if I have some guys that get killed, then it's going to be really hard for me to buy any like replacements. So you can sort of see where people's mindset is at with that. And I understand why, because you're like, well, it can sometimes take a couple of games to recover from like a bad game, if that makes sense. But at least with this, you're like, well, there's not that much of a downside aside from like guys potentially dying, which can happen. But like, you know, most of the time, you know, like your henchmen die
most of the time they might
end
up with a smashed leg.
Most of the time you're just like, the main risk, it seems to be like smashed leg or broken arm or an eye has been gouged out or like something like that. But typically this just kind of, I think, takes away that kind of like apprehension of like, oh, I don't really want to like play too risky. It's like, no, like if you want to like play a risky style, like
like why else are we here? You know, that's where you get the stories from. That's where you get the fun experiences, and right? Like
something that I've added that like wasn't in that that players pack for Canberra, and I haven't completely finalized this yet, but there's going to be like a kind of optional Mordheim like bingo card. So every player is given this list of like achievements. And it's essentially, it's completely optional. It doesn't determine whether you have a good time at the event or not. It's basically there to incentivize people to play narratively. So for example, it'll be like I'm going to give every player a stamp, and they can stamp their opponent's bingo card when stuff happens. So like one of the things on the bingo card is like your leader gets killed. So it's like that way, if your leader dies, instead of being like mopey about it, you're going to be like, oh, can you stamp my card for me? So it's like, yes, sweet. Exactly. And then as you build up the achievements, there's going to be prizes for people that achieve. Yeah. And some of them are going to be things like, you know, have your model get taken out of action because he tried a diving charge. And like a diving charge is fun because you've got to be up like on a higher level than like the model that you're charging. So you might be in a building and someone else is on the ground level. You're like, that's it, diving charge. You have to pass an initiative test. if you fail the initiative test, your guy trips over and falls off and can potentially kill himself. So it's kind of like, but the advantage to a diving charge is you get like, I think you get +1 to hit, you get extra attacks, and you get extra strength. So it's kind of like the advantage of doing it's really good, but the potentially you're on like an initiative test and could potentially just like lose that model.
Just end up knocked out next to your target, just
exactly. But one of the achievements will be like, take it'll either be like take an enemy model out of action from a diving charge, or have your own model taken out of action. So to me, that's like that incentivizes people to actually take the risk and do it. And even things like jumping between buildings, there'll be things like, one of the achievements will be like, your model manages to, fights a round of combat against like 3 or more enemies and survives, like that kind of thing. So it kind of rewards you for doing funny stuff rather than like just playing it safe, because Mordheim shouldn't be played that way. It's like, it's a narrative game. You're not playing for, very, very Aussie phrase here, but we're not playing for sheep stations. We're just playing for a good time. So so I haven't finalized that list, but there's going to be this big list of things, and people can earn extra swag and extra prizes with like completing as much of that list as they can, So
love it.
Awesome.
So you might lose the game and be like, oh man, like half my warband just got taken out of action, but then you're like, oh sweet, but I achieved 4 different things on the like bingo list, So you sort of you have that thing of like, oh well, that actually was pretty good because I actually achieved all this stuff, which was part of like, and some people might not bother doing it, and that's completely fine. But I'm hoping that most people are going to be like, oh, this is fun, I'm going to try and do it, So
you guys are
my leader died, my failed diving charge, take all this bad stuff off. I'm like, great work.
That is good.
So there'll be some cool stuff like that.
Jump into some hobby stuff, or do you want to wrap it up soon? Or because it's getting a bit late for us, but we had a late night last night.
Well, I'm already in trouble for talking too loud, so I'll probably I might pack it in. But
I know Josh had a few little things there. I don't know if you want to touch on them, Josh, but
I can. I don't know. I feel like I've done a pretty good time, really. I can just show you what I have been trying to work on my.
I would love to see this. I want to see Josh's pics.
You want to see my little
thumbnail?
See my little pics? My little thumbnail. All right, I'll pop it up. I have been working on some Bretonnians. I want to actually do them properly.
That is so cool.
Properly.
And this is answering my question: do you go squares or rounds? Because it seems like a controversial question.
I've gone rounds. Rounds.
Cool.
I couldn't
These are errands, right? Not errands on foot.
These are errands. Yeah. These
awesome.
are on foot.
Yes.
Yes.
So cool.
What's that? Where are they from?
Where indeed, Gomo?
Okay.
So they're sort of like a bit of a kit bash of like 5th ed Brett errands, but using the foot knight legs and using some arms and stuff from that pack as well. So
those look very cool. Those look really, really good.
And then get rid of these guys.
Oh, here we go.
I've turned them around. Oh, we got some backpacks. We got some backpacks, some ropes, some scrolls. Got a rope?
Yeah.
Yeah, he's got a climbing rope on his waist.
Is there a frying pan there?
That's awesome.
Not on this one. There are some frying pans around on some of the guys.
Hopefully, so when you're at weathertop, you can alert. Sorry, wrong. Wrong
to the top. Wrong. Yeah. So I'm very keen to get these guys properly painted up, guys.
That is so
I've got some rucksacks and stuff. Like, I got very excited. So I'm gonna have them all with like little kit and stuff, like looking like it's a traveling Bretonian sort of group.
They're in there.
That is awesome, man. That looks so good.
Thanks, Alex. Except for the battle pilgrims. The battle pilgrims won't have any gear on them. They'll just be running around with their crazy weapons.
Oh, they're on a pilgrimage. They don't need gear.
They're filthy. They are. They're filthy.
Exactly.
They're pilgriming.
You go in the corner. You filthy pilgrims.
They are.
I'm gonna
keep working on it.
Links off you for some of them. Yeah, that looks cool, man. I like the backpacks and stuff.
That's all stuff I've made. Like I had used their cells, but then I actually
he hobbied. Josh
cut it up and put it together. Like these are very much unique stuff.
Yeah,
that's so good.
Did you make the backpack? But you got the STLs.
The
for
backpack
That's
was
right,
an
yeah.
STL I pulled
Yeah,
off.
that's what I
yeah.
mean.
Yeah. Oh, I see one. Yeah. I can show you where the
rope.
backpacks are. That was just
You
on
got
my
found.
manufacturing, the backpacks.
Yeah.
If you want some of those.
I found rope ones. Okay, cool. Yeah.
The true
Awesome.
hobbyist.
That's all my hobby. Have you got your bases on there, Andrew?
Oh, they're still dry. But no, I have. No. I'll bring them up. They're not for Mordheim as such. They're for my undead.
Oh, I thought they were for Mordheim.
No. But I will have a similar base for Mordheim. I'm stuck on the round but the base size as well, because that's the problem I've got, like direwolves and whatnot. Do you, like, Alex, is there actually a set base size or?
No, honestly, there's not a set base size in any of the rule book at all. I think most people are like, I don't even think it's controversial. You can do rounds, you can do squares, like doesn't really matter because you're not really gaining anything from it. Size wise, just whatever's reasonable. Like if you want to put your infantry guys on 20 or 25 mils, that's pretty good. Any bigger models could go on 30 mils. Anything that's like, like a rat ogre or a troll or an ogre should probably be on a 40 or whatever. But
can everything still get into combat?
For the most part, like, I mean, you may find that like if you
can't,
not really. I mean, you like, you're not going to have too many situations where like if there's a guy that's like surrounded by other miniatures, like provided that there's like, if it's like corner to corner and like all the space is filled, then like I guess not. But you like generally, once again, you don't want to be too nitpicky on stuff. Like just, if a model has made a charge and there's like you can just maneuver another model to fit that one in, I don't think it's like a major problem.
Yes.
Wait. So, like I don't think there's really anything about like, oh, you can't charge through your own model, but if there's like already a combat happening and that model could make it into combat, I don't see any issue with like just jostling the models a bit to get them in. Like it's
so anything appropriately sized for that model, 2025. Yes, sweet.
Yeah.
And people don't try to get too gamey and try and do a bigger or smaller. Nah, sweet. Awesome.
I've never come across. I don't think having a bigger base is any advantage anyway, because like what advantage are they getting? If anything, there's like, you're actually going to make it hard for yourself with trying to get through doorways and put them on ledges and like stuff like that. It's kind of to me, I don't think a big base actually really helps. So and but like you'd be like, oh well, my model's closer to you and I can get my charge, but then like it's also closer for other people to charge you. So I don't think there's I don't think there's any benefit to it.
Yes, sweet.
But you wouldn't turn up with like random like infantry guys on like a 40 mil base, because that's just going to be like, the base would be too big for the mod. It just wouldn't look aesthetically. I don't think it'd look right.
No, that'd be ridiculous, clearly. But
and I think I'd probably say like if someone for whatever reason brought bases that were way too big for their models, let's say they're like trying to, let's say if there is a combat that's like blocking up part of like a street and they're trying to run a guy past there and they can't fit it in, I'd be like, well, you're the one that brought 40 mil bases on infantry models. Like, I don't know. Like, that's not like, you know what I mean? Like, if you have, like, if the bases are reasonable, it's like, it's not really an issue. But like, if you're being silly with your base sizes, well, then you're probably just making it harder for your own models to move around. Like, it doesn't.
But that's all good. So if you bought like standard Old World models, be it, because like the 25's gone to what, 32, I think. So
30s or something.
30s. 30. So it is getting bigger, but that wouldn't affect anything basically.
No,
it would really.
I think it'd be totally fine, to be honest.
Awesome.
Cool. Anyway, well, we might. Do you want to close this one out and as our episode? Obviously, this was just catching up, and I don't know. We're going to try to do this every month. Is that right, guys?
Yeah.
We'll see the progress. We'll see the progress of how our warbands go.
Yeah, I'm very keen to see you guys. Getting a couple of warbands together should be cool.
Yes.
And then I'll definitely give you guys a if you don't get it, I mean, hopefully you get a chance to play a little bit beforehand. But if not, then I'd love to give you guys a bit of an intro to it on the Friday night if you're up for it. So just before Castle Assault starts. So
would be good.
Yeah, no, that's really good. Anything else you want to think about for future episodes, or it's just we'll just do these catch ups? I mean, I don't think we're frequent enough to sort of run people through all the intricacies of the game, so it's really just going to be our journey into Mordheim, really, isn't it? So
yeah.
Good.
And we'll probably try to hit some different topics every week, and maybe look at certain things a bit more in depth. And
what we could do, if you want, what we could do is like Gomo and Andrew, if you guys kind of narrow down, like maybe you each pick a warband that you feel like you're gonna be keen on doing, and we can even just talk about that warband a little bit, like, what are the choices you've got, and what can you do, and how does the warband actually work, and then we could look at, maybe look at some of the scenarios and like, okay, well, like how do these scenarios, I mean, there's a lot of different things you could delve into. Like there's a huge list of equipment options. There's a huge list of cool, like, you could literally go through the skill list and just talk about skills and stuff. There's so much stuff you can talk about, really.
Yeah. That's cool. Well, I guess for listeners, let us know. I mean, as I said, we're starting off slow here, like once a month, but let us know how popular this, if you want to hear more, I guess click that like button, I guess, and leave us lots of comments. That's what we want to know. And it's on our Old World Fanatics channel at the moment, but I'll just see where it goes, I guess. Pretty keen to
And if anyone, I mean, just I'll plug my podcast as well a little bit. But there's we did have the rank bonus podcast. If anyone's listening to Old World Fanatics, or in this case Mordheim Fanatics, if you haven't heard about the rank bonus podcast, if you like a bit of Warhammer 6th edition and various other things that kind of fit in around that, feel free to give us a listen. And we do have a couple of episodes about Mordheim. We had an episode that we recorded in the lead up to us going and playing down at Canberra. And then we had an episode where we basically talked about the stories and all the fun stuff that happened to all the terrible things that befell our brave warriors.
You guys got a funny podcast. I actually really like it. Like I've listened many a time. Specifically, I think Frank and yourself have like definitely when like you doing the Old World, I listened to quite a few of those, and I had quite a few laughs.
We try and have a fun time with it. We're not the most professional, but it
was good. It was so good. Yeah, it was fun.
But I very much appreciate you guys bringing me in for this. I love Mordheim, and
we didn't have to twist you on, did we?
Chat with you guys. No, definitely not.
Yeah, probably got to be people. Yeah. It's really good. Hopefully, hopefully we'll have a little bit more experience, I think, but in the next month, at least getting some warbands together and stuff. So
So go through the list. It's quite a rabbit hole when you start looking at all the ones on Broheim. You're like, oh, what's in this? Oh, wow, this lets me take these things. Oh, cool. And there's like a different skill list for that. There's like all these
still scheming. You just I could do this.
Yeah, exactly. So it is a bit fun just playing around with all the different options you've got. And quite often you'll find, and kind of what I mentioned earlier, is like you might just look at your existing armies that you have access to, and you might find that for one like Warhammer army that you've got, there might be 3 warbands that you could make just from that army, if that makes sense. You could, like Colin, you've got orcs, right? There's probably about 3 or 4 different
Empire.
Warbands that you could do,
I've got hunters, flagellants. I mean, it could do all that, but I feel like this is a good excuse to model something up a bit different as well.
Totally.
And not have to do the whole 60, 70 model slug through.
It feels just like a little mini project in the context of what we normally take on.
Yeah, exactly.
For sure.
Cool. Anyway, I might give it a wrap up. Listeners, leave us some comments on questions for the next episode too. Yeah, we'll definitely try get these guys to answer them. So thanks a lot, guys. Thanks everyone for listening to our first Mordheim Fanatics, I guess. And subscribe, and we'll see where it goes from here. Pretty excited about it.
Yep. Awesome.
I'll see you next time, guys. Cheers.
See you later, guys. Bye.
Ciao.